Disney's buying lots of companies, and so is Apple, most recently Shazam, and now it's rumored that they're in talks to buy Netflix. Now, what does that mean? So actually, a few weeks ago, Apple bought Shazam. I did not make a video about it because I did not think there was much to discuss. Shazam has been one of the most popular apps on the iOS App Store since, like, the iPhone 4. I still remember the Shazam ad back when there was that "there's an app for that" ad campaign. So now that Apple owns it, like, it keeps working fine. Maybe it works better with Apple Music. Maybe they're trying to integrate it into Siri better, even though Siri already can do that. If you say what song is playing, she can figure it out. But Netflix, I think it's safe to say, is a much bigger deal. Over half of Americans have a Netflix account, or at least have access to a Netflix account. Definitely kind of the pioneer of streaming services. I believe the most popular video streaming service out there. Tons of exclusive original content like Stranger Things and Mindhunter and Bright and all of these brand new movies and brand new TV shows that are exclusive to Netflix. And in all honesty, Netflix is doing great right now. What would be the point in actually selling themselves to the giant company Apple? I'm sure Apple can afford them, being one of the richest companies out there. Being bought by Apple has statistically not been a bad thing for your business. It usually means that you're going to be integrated into their company, or you get to keep doing your own thing, but you also get first-hand exclusive access to Apple's hardware before it comes out, like we saw with the Beats headphones lineup. But maybe Apple buying Netflix could be bad news for Android or Google users if it means that Netflix may perform, or you might get a better deal if you use the Apple Music subscription service partnered with your Netflix account. That's one theory a lot of people seem to think is out there. Like, Apple Music is $10 a month, but if you pay $15 a month, you get Apple Music and Netflix combined. Something like that. But then I keep asking myself, Netflix is spending literally billions of dollars on creating their own original content, and I don't think anyone's close to unsubscribing from Netflix. They're doing very, very well, and they're reaching more countries, and their subscriber base only continues to rise. So if a company's doing that well, why sell themselves? Well, one theory I have is that Netflix is terribly afraid of what's coming next year in 2019, the Disney streaming service. For those of you who don't know, this is basically an open secret. Disney, because they basically own every movie studio out there now, you can basically count on one hand what studios Disney does not own anymore. Disney has said that they are working on their own streaming service that will be an app that'll be on TVs and smart TVs, basically everywhere, and it is essentially going to include all of Disney's content. And I do mean all of Disney's content. This includes Lucasfilm with the Star Wars films. This includes Marvel with the MCU. This includes Disney Animation, that is Frozen and Moana. That is Pixar with Coco and Toy Story. And basically all of those services, and there's countless more that Disney owns the rights to, are going to be making their way onto their own dedicated streaming site. And one thing I think Netflix has to definitely be afraid of is that once Disney starts having their own streaming service, a lot of the Disney content that has made its way onto Netflix is going to be pulled from that service. They've said things like the Star Wars cartoon series, like the Clone Wars and Rebels. All of that's going to be pulled from Netflix. Marvel films like Captain America, all of that's going to be pulled from Netflix and put on the new Disney streaming service that, I mean, it's safe to say, you know that's going to be a giant hit. Imagine a streaming services like Netflix, except now you get all the Marvel films, all the Star Wars films, all the Disney Animation, and all the Pixar, and the countless other studios. All of that you get in one included service. And one rumor from the inside has mentioned that the Disney streaming service is actually going to undercut the Netflix streaming service, which means that while Netflix is doing really well right now and they're making as much original content as possible, they're going to have a big fight with the mouse just in 2019 when they launch that streaming service and decide to start pulling all of their Disney content from Netflix. A lot of people who are exclusively into the Marvel films or the Star Wars shows or whatnot might find Netflix a tad more pointless in 2019. And Netflix, in order to survive, needs as much content as possible, especially the popular content, on their site for people to keep watching them and to keep paying. It's safe to say that I'm definitely going to be signing up for that Disney service because I love the idea of streaming, and I love the idea of a streaming service having basically all the most popular content you can think of. And I think that is what Netflix is likely afraid of. Perhaps it's a really bad idea to go to war against the most giant movie producing studio out there that I think is almost borderline getting to monopolistic stages moves. Like, does Disney really have much competition now that like almost every major blockbuster is a Disney film at this point? Perhaps they're looking at Apple and thinking, they're trying to become more of a services company like they did with Apple Music. They're trying to invest into actually more video production. If you didn't know that, Apple recently bought a lot of property that is supposed to be dedicated for making exclusive video content that they're planning on putting on the Apple Music subscription service. Perhaps combining that with Netflix would be a great way for Apple to incentivize people to stick with Apple Music instead of Spotify, as that is their primary competition right now in terms of music streaming sites. It would be a pretty tough sell, especially now that we know that Apple Music is on Android, meaning that, well, you can get just Spotify for $9 a month, or for like $12 or $13 a month, you can get Apple Music and Netflix combined. If Apple was able to make that sort of package for its Apple Music subscribers, I think Spotify would have a much harder time, and I think Netflix would have that assurance of not dying. They would have the support of Apple, the richest company in the world, which means that it's very hard for them to go out of business. They get a lot of funding, and I'm sure Apple loves Netflix as a company, and I'm sure that Apple would likely allow Netflix to basically just keep doing what it's doing. There could be a lot of exclusive content coming in the future that is designed specifically to be viewed on certain iPads and certain iPhones, like to show off the HDR capabilities. Or perhaps Apple could get greedy and start saying that 4K content only works on 4K Apple TVs now, or something mean like that. But either way, I can start to understand, the more I think about it, why Netflix might be like, let's not try to go to war with Disney. Let's join forces with another larger entity and then try to survive that way. But as of right now, I think they're totally fine. I don't think Netflix needs to sell themselves. I think they would do just fine on their own. And just my personal take on the matter, while I understand why they would want to sell themselves, I don't think they should. I think that enough people enjoy Netflix. It's like common sense now that that's something people just subscribe to, and there is always new content coming out on it. I encourage Netflix to go to war with Disney because I like Netflix. I like that they're able to stand on their own and they're able to create so much original content all the time. Basically, every time I turn on the TV now, there's some new Netflix show, and I think they're doing great stuff, and I don't think they need Apple's help. Of course, as an Apple sheep, I would love it if there was some incentives to subscribing in Apple Music and Netflix at the same time or something, but still, I don't think every single giant company needs to buy every single company we can think of. Competition is good. I would much rather have Apple create their own original video content, make their own subscription service like iTunes Movies or Apple Movies, and then compete with Netflix. We don't need to all join forces. Even with Star Wars and Marvel and Disney Animation off of Netflix next year, I still think most people are not going to unsubscribe from Netflix. We're too used to it. We're too accustomed to it. Disney is new at creating apps and services, not as well known for that, so they might have some hiccups or some lack of optimization on all types of different products. So I'm gonna say Netflix, stick to your guns. You got this. Don't need to sell yourself, but if you do, I'd still get it. So those are my thoughts on the Apple buying Netflix rumors. Of course, this could not happen at all, but I'm very curious to hear your thoughts about it in the comments below. This is your Apple Sheep here, and I will see you in the next one.